I still get excited when I catch fish. It doesn't really matter if it's a little one or a big one. There's a small adrenaline rush that occurs when you get one on the line.
Hello again and welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. I am your host, Jason. Now imagine yourself sitting on the water, fishing pole in your hand, and sun shining down on you. It's the perfect way to spend the day. Nothing but you and open waters. Fishing season is here, and that means it's time to enjoy some quality time with buddies and see who can reel in the big one. Whether you're a seasoned fisherman or just looking to try it for the first time, there are a few things you should keep in mind before you cast that first line. Today, I'm talking to Bob LeRoy, the newly elected president of the Wisconsin Fishing Club. The Wisconsin Fishing Club is located in the southeast part of the state, and besides fishing, they introduce kids to the sport of fishing, have guest speakers at their meetings, but mainly they share their love of fishing. Bob, I want to thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Bob, what's your earliest memory of being outdoors?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I would have to say, and this is in all honesty, I would have to say it was probably fishing. I mean, my dad was a crazy fisherman, and when we went fishing with my dad, you went from early in the morning till dark, and you didn't come in. If you had to go to the bathroom, you went over the side of the boat. You know, I mean, there was no, you're going fishing for an hour and coming back, and I can remember when I was just a little guy, we would ice fish on lakes around here in the Waukesha County area, and I can remember sitting out on the ice all day. You know what? It didn't really hurt me any. I think it made me, in some ways, a more patient person and a better person. So mostly, I would say my dad, fishing with my dad.
Yeah, those are always really great memories, and so you've had fishing instilled in you for a long time, haven't you?
Oh yeah, since I was a little kid, since I can remember, we fished a lot with my friends as I was growing up. We used to ride our bikes to various lakes that were near our houses, so we did an awful lot of fishing then. We went to go to the grocery store or the little corner store or whatever, buy a bag of potato chips and a quart of Coke, and we would sit on the bank all day fishing for carp. And so yeah, I'm pretty much addicted. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I do other things, but fishing is right up there on top, you know. Yeah,
those are all really great memories, and that's one thing about, I think, Wisconsin is that you're able to do that fishing all year long, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I ice fish and I fish Lake Michigan, again from the shore for the most part on Lake Michigan, and then I open water fish the lakes primarily in the Waukesha County area and then up in Washburn and Sawyer County. And Wisconsin is, I mean, come on, we got a great setup here. Lots of boat launches, lots of places where you can access the water. If you want to go up north and get away from things a little bit and get away from the crowds, you got that option. If you don't mind a few people hanging around and a few people at the boat launch, you got that option down here in the Milwaukee area. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you, besides those points, what makes Wisconsin fishing so great?
Again, I talked about the boat access and lake access. I mean, it's really pretty good. There's some lakes you just can't get on. They're privately owned or they're closed off by the lake owners or whatever. And, I don't like it, but I get it. Mainly, we have access to some great lakes and great fishing. And the Wisconsin DNR, and I'm not trying to plug for the DNR, but they do a pretty good job of managing the fishery and making sure that there are, fish around that we can catch. I'm mostly a catch and release guy, so I don't keep very many fish. A few bluegills in the wintertime from ice fishing, but open water, I rarely ever take a fish out. And I think a lot of guys are the same way. I think it's kind of evolved. When I was younger, everybody went fishing to catch fish and keep fish and eat fish. Nothing wrong with that. I get it. But for me personally, I'm kind of a catch and release, and I think the DNR does an awesome job of providing those kind of opportunities for us. It's not very expensive, so a fishing license for a guy like me, a retired guy, $7. $7 for a whole year to go out and fish. even if you're not a retired guy and you're, a regular dude that's still working, it's $20. I think that's a pretty good deal to get out and be able to do all we do, fishing wise, for that kind of money.
Yeah, really, it's really cheap entertainment in reality when you think how for the whole year, $20 is really nothing.
It really isn't, and if you want to fish Lake Michigan, for instance, got to pay a little bit more there, extra for that stamp, to go with it. But okay, so now it's $30, and it includes, the great trout fishing opportunity and coho and salmon opportunities out on Lake Michigan. Those fish that these guys are bringing in, they're giants. I mean, they're some of the biggest in the world that are being caught right now, and I think that's just amazing. And for me, it's just 20 miles away, and I could be doing that. So, again, hats off, I think, to the DNR and some of the decisions that they've made to improve those fishing opportunities for us.
Wisconsin has quite a bit of variety of fish, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We got pretty much everything, all the way from muskie and sturgeon, which are, the biggest of the bunch, all the way down to the bluegills and the perch and the sunfish and stuff like that. So anything you want to go for pretty much is available. I mean, for instance, for me, within a 60-mile radius, I can probably go out and catch anything. I mean, I still appreciate up north because, the thing about Wisconsin is it's really beautiful, and it's really open and lots of trees and lots of water, and you got loons and you got eagles, and it's pretty spectacular if you think about it, the fact that we've allowed that to stay, I won't say pretty much the same because I know there's been changes, but the lakes and the rivers and stuff out there are still pretty remote. And my brother and I do a lot of small lake fishing where there's really nobody out there. It's just you in a small boat fishing on a small lake surrounded by wildlife and peace and quiet. And, that's very, I don't want to say healing, but it sure makes you feel good, the fact that we haven't spoiled all that yet,
Yeah, and that's one thing I really love about this state is how we are so diversified, like you said, you're down kind of by the Milwaukee area, how you can quickly go and fish someplace there, or you can plan a whole week and come up to the Northwoods and, like you said, just have a relaxing weekend on the water. It's just, we're so lucky to have so much diversification here when it comes to where you can fish and how you can fish in this state. We're recording this podcast just before May 1st, and it'll be released here next week, which will be right after the opening day of fishing. What makes that opening day of fishing season so special?
Well, it's changed a little this year now because they changed the rules. They've actually opened up bass fishing to catch and release prior to the opening. So in past years, you couldn't fish for bass or pike or walleyes or muskie or whatever until opening day. This year, there was catch and release for bass. So you had opportunities to catch game fish prior to the opener. So I think maybe the opener this year will be a little less spectacular, but still, it's for fishermen. That's it. That's the official start of summer, right? Until then, you can get out and fart around a little bit for bluegills and smaller fish. But once the game fish opens up, then that kind of gets things started. And really, until the water warms a little anyway, you really don't do all that well with game fish. I know guys will refute that and say, well, you can still get them, and it's true, you can. But once you get to May 1st, the water is warming now to the point where the bigger fish will start to become a little more active. And it's like, here we go. Let's kick this thing off, and it's pretty cool.
So for some of my listeners that might not quite understand this, explain that a little bit, because you see people fishing all year long, and then we hear about the fishing opener. But for some that might not make sense. Why is it considered the openers?
Again, it's all about the kind of fish that you can legally catch and keep, right? So prior to the opener, it's bluegills and perch and crappies. Again, these are smaller panfish as a general rule. You're not allowed to possess largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, walleyes, muskies, northern pike, the game fish, so again, the bigger fish. Because nowadays there's this trend towards catch and release. The guys tend to focus more. Heck, if I can do catch and release, then I'm going to go after the bigger ones.
Sure.
And it's more, and to be honest, it's more fun catching a big fish than a little. I mean, my grandson, who's been fishing with me for quite a while now, he doesn't even want to mess with bluegills and perch. All he wants to go after is the game fish.
Get the trophy fish.
That's what makes it special, right? You go out now. If you catch a 5-pound or a 6-pound largemouth, how about that? That's pretty cool. Take a picture, release them, or if you want to, again, you can eat them.
So as somebody's getting ready for the opener and the fishing season, what are some things that people can do to prepare themselves for the upcoming season?
I think, if you have a boat, take care of the maintenance before you get out there on the water. There are ways to run the boat in your backyard and make sure that it's running correctly, make sure your batteries are charged. Go through your fishing equipment. All those are pretty much standard, but then you'll be ready. When you get there, then the boat's already running. It runs. The electrical on the boat's working correctly. Boats requires you to pay attention to what's going on the boat, how it's running, because if not, you get stranded out on the lake. Yeah. Tow in or paddle in or whatever. That would be the very first thing that I would definitely focus on. Second thing is start thinking about what lakes you might want to fish. So again, we were talking about cold water, warmer water. The smaller lakes, the smaller shallow lakes tend to warm up faster than the bigger lakes. Those lakes tend to take a longer time to warm up. So you might want to think about concentrating on smaller, shallower lakes where the water's already got sort of a jump start on the season. And again, because fish are cold-blooded, they respond to water temps. Basically that's their livelihood. And so you want to pick a lake that maybe was a few degrees warmer, and sometimes a couple degrees is all that it matters. And you'll do well on a lake like that. So that's my sort of personal philosophy. And then as the water starts to warm up, the bigger lakes start to become players. Obviously, going to the bigger lakes is usually better for the size of the fish that you're going to be catching.
Sure.
So you want to pick lakes that have big fish in it, and almost always it's the bigger bodies of water where there's some deeper water where the bigger fish can hang out. So that, and then pay attention to the clothing. Chances are it's going to be cold, so you want to make sure that you're ready. A lot of times it rains on the opener, so you want to make sure you have a rain suit or whatever, and just have fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about if you're new to fishing, if you've never been fishing before, if you always wanted to try it. What are some things that some advice you would give to somebody who wants to get into fishing?
A lot of people don't know this. You can go fishing without having any equipment or anything. The DNR, Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, actually will lend you rods and reels, corks and bobbers and hooks that you can borrow from them up to a week. So if you go on the DNR website, you'll see a section on loaner rods. So you don't even need equipment to go out fishing. You can borrow it from the DNR and then go fishing. The other thing is, there's a lot of people don't have boats. I mean, I'm lucky because I have a couple, but if you don't have a boat, there's a ton of shore opportunities that you can take advantage of. A lot of the boat launches have fishing piers situated not too far from them. They're almost all free, and you can go and fish off of a pier if you don't have a boat. With your DNR borrowed fishing pole, you got to get bait. Don't forget you got to get a license unless you're a little kid under 16. But that would that's a great way to start out if you've never done it before. All of the county parks, well, at least the ones down here, Waukesha County, Milwaukee County, they all have lagoons, right? There's fish in those lagoons. It doesn't cost you nothing to go to those lagoons and fish off the shore. Granted, you're not going to probably catch a 50-inch muskie there.
Right.
But if you're just starting out, you need a bobber, a hook, some worms, a place to sit on the bank, and catch what's in there. You know, the DNR actually plants fish. Actually, Hunger Task Force in Milwaukee County, they actually plant fish in those ponds for kids and elderly adults to fish for. So they put trout, bluegills, and perch every year. Normally, in the spring of the year, they will dump a bunch of fish in all of those ponds. What a great opportunity to catch some decent fish, not just little tiny bullheads and little bluegills, but to catch some, 15-inch trout or, 12-inch perch or 8-inch bluegills right from the shore in a pond located, probably right by your house. Most of the people that live in Milwaukee or Waukesha are near the county parks. Fantastic opportunities. And this is short fishing. You don't even need a boat. The other thing I would say is, if you've never been out before, if you know somebody who does fish and does know what he's doing, boy, if you can somehow get them to take you out with them just once or twice in a boat, and these guys, experienced guys, they know what baits to use. Chances are they'll have equipment that they can borrow, lend to you that you can use. They'll have the correct baits, and try it that way. I mean, almost all of us know somebody who fishes, and if he's a friend or a neighbor, just, hey, I'd like to try fishing. How about giving me a chance? How about let me go out with you sometime? That sort of thing. So I think that's another way for a new person to sort of get involved.
What is a good expectation of somebody new going out there? Because I think that's always the biggest thing is you want to be able to go out and try to catch something those first time out. But like you said, you're not going to probably catch a muskie or anything like that. What's a good fish that somebody could try for that would be a good expectation for that first timer?
So it's just a tad bit early yet, but in another couple weeks, all the panfish will be in close to shore because they start their spawning rituals in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So all of them will be within casting distance of any shoreline that you happen to be standing on, or if you're in a boat, you're going to want to concentrate on the shallow water. I mean, even the bigger fish, the bass, for instance, they also move in close, but very easy to catch. Bluegills are not very smart. Again, a worm and a bobber and a small hook and a bank somewhere where you can sit, and you won't have to toss out very far. And that'll start, probably in a couple of weeks. You'll start seeing a lot of the panfish. They move into the warmer water and they start their spawning rituals. And simple to catch, very easy to catch. Take some kids. If you got some kids, take them along with you. It always makes things more exciting.
Oh, yeah. Watching
kids when they're catching fish and hanging out with kids and makes them part of it as well as you.
Yeah, I always think that's almost more fun than actually fishing myself. Is to watch a kid finally reel a fish in for the first time, or have a really big one that they got to fight a little bit. That to me is almost more enjoyable.
Our club does kids fishing clinics, about 3 or 4 a year that we normally do. Of course, not this year, but prior to this. And we got one of the ones we do gets about 40 to 50 kids showing up, and that is just crazy. I got 10 or 12 guys helping me do this, and it is unbelievable. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, you just feel so good about yourself that you're able to show these kids how to fish, watch the enjoyment that's going on, watch the fun on their faces when they're fishing, and it's really a pretty neat thing. And I feel like I'm giving back something anyway, at least trying.
Well, you mentioned your club a little bit. Let's talk about that. You are the newly elected president of the Wisconsin Fishing Club. What is the Wisconsin Fishing Club all about?
I would say the main focus of the club is educational. We have about 2 meetings a month as a general rule. During the fishing season, we only go to one because we want the guys to get out on the water, but it's mostly about learning about fishing. We bring speakers in. They talk about various subjects. They could be guides, for instance. They could be people that manufacture new new equipment, new ideas, new baits, that sort of thing. And also, it's there's a social aspect to it, right? So a lot of these guys have been in the club for a long time, and they're all pretty good friends. This opens opportunities for guys to get together with folks their age and some younger guys, and just talk about fishing, talk about the sport that they love. And then kids fishing clinics, which I already kind of talked about, is something that's near and dear to my heart. In fact, that's one of the things that I've been put in charge of. And like I said, the Hunger Task Force and the DNR put fish in the pond, and then we have these clinics where we invite in. We're talking mostly inner city kids who probably have never fished before or have fished very little. And wow, I feel like we're really helping elevate the sport, or at least introduce the sport to kids who maybe would never get a chance, to do it or to catch a fish. And pretty spectacular.
I wanted to ask you, why is that so important to get kids involved in fishing at such a young age?
We need to get kids outdoors. We need to let kids see what the outdoors is all about, get an opportunity to do something like fishing, which, by the way, is super relaxing and a lot of fun. I think that's what I see as our role as fishermen, as experienced fishermen, is let's try to introduce as many kids as we can to it, and maybe for some of them, it'll stick. I mean, you think about it, what finances the fishing here in the state of Wisconsin? Well, it's licenses, right? It's people buying licenses. So if we forget about the youngsters, who's going to buy the licenses in the future to keep this going right now? I mean, we got a pretty good thing going right now, and lots of fish to be caught, and it's primarily due to the money that's brought in on fishing licenses. And man, we just can't let that die. I think it's possible that we can capture some of them and get them involved even more.
Well, that's great. I think you're doing some really great work when you're bringing in kids into a program like this. Where can somebody find more information about your club?
Well, we have a website. We also have Facebook. So Wisconsin Fishing Club Facebook and Wisconsin Fishing Club website. It'll give you all the information about when the meetings are, where the meetings. But I would start with there. There's phone numbers there of guys in the club who are all fairly experienced, been there for a while. They can help you if you have an interest in joining. It's $30 a year, and that helps pay for all the speakers that we do. And then we also hold raffles at every meeting where we raffle off rods and reels and baits, and one guy brings in pickles and salsa and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So I would start there. And not just us. There's a lot of clubs out there that are doing same kind of things we are.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, but before I let you go, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of fishing?
I still get excited when I catch fish. It doesn't really matter if it's a little one or a big one. There's a small general adrenaline rush that occurs when you get one on the line. I also build fishing rods, custom fishing rods. So for me, I'll build a rod, I'll take it on the water, and I'll try to catch a fish on something that I made myself, and so I get an awful lot of satisfaction with being able to catch something on a fishing rod that I made. So I think it's still, the battle. I mean, it's just between you and the fish, right? I want to win. The fish has got to eat. Hey, you're going back anyway, buddy, so why don't you just go ahead and bite? And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. You've given us a lot of great information, and I want to wish you a good fishing season.
Yeah. Be safe, okay?
Yeah, definitely. You too. Thank you. I want to thank Bob for coming on the podcast and sharing his knowledge and love of fishing. The Wisconsin Fishing Club is doing some great work educating the next generation on fishing. If you live in the southeast part of the state, you should consider joining them and being a part of their organization. They're doing some wonderful things there. Otherwise, if you're interested in joining a fishing club, do a little research and see if there are any in your area. Or, you know what, start your own. Just get a group of buddies together, start a fishing club, start doing some clinics for youth. It's a great way to really be a part of the state and really get out there and introduce the next generation to fishing. Fishing clubs are a great way to educate, learn, and just, have a good time. And the best part is you get to enjoy a little time on the water as you head out to be one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. Hey, thanks again for joining me. I'm your host, Jason, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. For more great information about being an outdoor explorer, visit our website at wisconsinsoutdoorexplorer.com. Be sure to check out the blog page and follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.